press record. The recording's in progress. All right, mate. Let's just check that this is going on and that if there's anybody foolish enough to join this. Yes, we're on. I can see that. I've pressed that button there. If you're Irish, step into the parlour. Just that's for all our friends in
The Emerald Isle.
the
They say,
Emerald
don't
or
they say, don't they, if you're from Liverpool, you just scratch the surface and there's a bit of Ireland in there.
oh, absolutely. I've got no doubt about that.
Mm.
How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm okay. Nothing. Yeah, no, I'm good. I am good. You?
Are you really good, or are you making that up and pretending to be good?
No, I'm good. No,
Good.
I'm good, mate. You'd have heard if I wasn't.
Yeah, yeah. Because that's what I realized that most of my life I've been pretending to be okay when deep down I've been as miserable as sin. Right.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
that's what I mean by pretentiousness, means not being true to your feelings. Right. And there's a phrase in it that we know, and it goes, "You're only as sick as your secrets." And I didn't understand that, Gary, for a long, long time in the fellowship that we go to,
Yeah,
which shall remain anonymous, but anybody could work it out from there what that's all about. Chin chin, cheerio, and
yeah. Black Hand
cheers.
Gang.
Yeah, cheers. Yeah. So, yeah, you're only as sick as your secrets, and what does it mean to you?
Well, I think an old friend of ours, and it's so true. You are only as sick as your secrets. And I too had no, I thought, what the fuck are they talking about? Sick as your secrets? I haven't really got any secrets to tell everyone everything. Um, but Vinny, I'm talking about, he used to say, shame the devil.
Yeah, yeah,
And shame the devil is, and we were talking before we went live about fear and pride, weren't we? And I know when I started doing the stuff that we do, um, I was asked, "What are your fears? What fears do you have?" And I said, I don't really have any fears." And I thought about it, and I said, "Well, do you know what I am? I'm scared of spiders, big spiders, and I'm scared of snakes." And he said, "Oh, fuck off. I'm not interested in that. What is it that you don't want me to know about you?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm going to have to, I've come this far. I'm going to have to, I haven't come this far just to come this far. I've got to tell him." And that feeds back into to thine own self be true.
I thought I was being true to myself.
Yeah.
People were saying to me, and they said it for a long time, is why don't you just be true to yourself? And I
Yeah.
thought, what the fuck are they talking about? I am true. I know myself very well, and I clearly know now, right? And I'm going to say it on this because it's an adult channel, right?
Yeah.
Our sort of friend, right, who looks after both of us, right?
Yeah.
He said, Joe, have you ever heard the expression "know all knows fuck all"? Right? And I said, yeah. He said, that's you, Joe. That's you. Every time I say something, you say, I know. And
Mhm.
it's plain to me that you've got no fucking idea at all. Right. You may know who's doing what with who and all that sort of business. You may know a lot about external stuff and all knowledge stuff, right? Because you're not that thick, you're a bit of
Mhm.
an intellectual. You've read a lot of stuff, and you'd be called well read, but you
Mhm.
haven't got a fucking clue, really, have you, about
Mhm.
who you really are? And
Mhm.
Gary, he was right, and I wanted to kill
Mhm.
him at this
Mhm.
point. I had what's called a severe emotional reaction, right? And when truth comes out of somebody else, and it's got to come out from
Yeah.
somebody else, really, because that's the step, as we know, in humility. I'm going to talk about that in a minute.
Good.
True humility,
Yeah.
because the humility I had, I would do everything for anybody. I'll do that for you, Joe. Do us a favor. I'll be glad to. I'll be glad to. Do you know what, Gary? If they never said thank you or they never paid me back in some way, I'd want to rip their throats out, you see.
Yeah.
And this
Yeah.
chap,
No. Yeah.
our little ray of sunshine, he said to me, so he said, that's called conditional giving, Joe. because it's all about you. And then once again, I wanted to rip his throat out because I found a man who didn't give two shits about all my qualifications and all that sort of business. He swept that aside and he went, hang on. He said, let's look at the principles here.
yeah,
Right. And he said, Joe, and you'll begin to find out that all your relationships that you've always had, what you thought was unconditional love was nothing but all about you. If you do this for me, I will love you more and more. I've never loved anybody else more than I love you.
yeah.
And as soon as they don't play your game, Joe, you'll want to kill them. I thought, oh my God, it's true. And he said, Joe, human love, he said, from his own experience and from his own wisdom that he's gained over the years, he said, human love's all about chains. It's
Yeah.
all about possessions. And
He does.
we try and seek as many possessions, and in the end, they possess us. Right.
Yeah. He said to me when we were doing some stuff, he said, I know that you will have asked this question when you've been in a relationship. Do you love me? And I say, yeah, I've asked that, yeah. And then you would have followed that up with, but do you really love me? And what he explained was, um, I was asking, am I safe?
Yeah,
Am I in a safe situation?
yeah,
And that is, as you just said in different words, selfish, self-centered, protective. If you or me or people like us of our whatever you want to call it, walk into a room, a crowded room, you will know like that what's going on. You will know who's there, what within a split second, because that's what we've learned to do. That's what we've
see, if
that
I
that
went in a room of
protective.
crowded people, most of them would like me because I was a likable chap. It was funny. I
Yeah,
made people laugh, and I did. If they asked me for the favor, I'd do it. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And I wouldn't tell them, you horrible bastard, you never said thank you. But I'd be like cooking that up
Thank
as a
you.
resentment, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
And resentment is something that we store up and we don't even know we're doing it. This is what I was trying to say is I didn't know I was doing this. These were automatic, unconscious
yeah,
actions that were basically they were there as a consequence of the programs
yeah,
that have been fed me since I
yeah,
was a little child and even before that. I mean, we can go back into ancestral
yeah,
cultural patterns if we like, and we might get to that. But the point is, I was nothing but a programmed automaton, right? And I see that now. I was like a psycho cybernetic robot, right? And as soon as a situation that came up, right, I would feel that pattern, that depth, and immediately respond. It's like a computer program. It's called an exe file, an executable file, right? You
mm,
make the program, and when it happens, right, it automatically goes off below the level of your
yeah,
consciousness. And there's
yeah,
me up there thinking, ducking and diving, dodging and weaving. I know what's going on, and she's doing that with him, and look at the way he's looking at her, and that'll cause trouble. And I'd say to people, see them there, keep an eye on them.
yeah.
And it was like a predictor of what was going on.
Mm.
And then
Because of
now,
the reward, isn't it? It's look how clever I am, look how smart
exactly,
I am.
I still have a touch of that.
Yeah, I do.
No, in fact, if we're going to be honest about it, I still have a massive, massive, big part of that, right? Right.
Yeah, yeah,
So, and
yeah.
Gary, how do we know what's ego and how do we know what's spirit and how do we find out? Yeah, but that's
Excellent
that's where they're
horse.
coming from. But how do we know that I had this sort of conversation in the week with someone. How do we know we're acting from ego or whether we're acting from our hearts or let's call it our souls? How
Okay,
how do
so
you know, mate?
for me, I have to live by a set of principles, honest, open, and willing, which I do to the best of my ability. And let's get this absolutely clear. That doesn't mean that if something happens, my first thought today is still, how is this going to affect me? How is this going to affect me? Because I think the programming is too deep in me to that for that not to be there. However, although at the I can have that first thought, I'm not responsible for that. What I am responsible for is how long I play with it. So when I see that first thought and it becomes conscious,
Yeah,
Where it used to be subconscious, I see it now quicker. So you used the word the other day, discernment. I can't remember. I think you were talking to Sinead. Discernment, and I thought, oh yeah, I like that because we have to live in truth. We have to live. The solution is the solution for us is living in truth. And how do I know when I'm living in truth? Because I've been through whatever situation I've been through. I've gone through what I've gone through to see how I operate, to see to make that subconsciousness become conscious. What that means is I can now distinguish the truth, which is my soul, my intuition, whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to call it. I operate in that, and I can see quicker the faults when it's my head. When I'm operating from an in the world instinct, a protective instinct, or a learned behavior, I can see that, and it's like a crack in my head, a whip crack going off in my head. I'm like, oh, fucking hell. And it happens all the time. And we were talking about earlier. I mean, for me, the spiritual life is simply distinguishing the truth from the false. How do I know? How do I know? Because I feel it.
Yeah, yeah.
I feel it.
Same here, mate. But what happens when we're in our early days, when we were numbed from our feelings? That's difficult, isn't it then?
Oh,
Right. Because I
yeah,
remember having the big bang spiritual awakening. I got a big massive one, you know what I mean? And I was flooded then with how the world works, right?
yeah,
How it could be saved and the part that I was going to play in it. It's
yeah,
called the savior complex, and I had that for nine
yeah,
months. And I
yeah,
thought I could go around and touch somebody, like E.T., right? And they'd be immediately cured of all their
yeah.
problems. And this is no shit, mate, right?
No,
And people would see me coming down the street and run away. They'd run away quickly. And I thought I had completely, that my ego had been totally jettisoned, right? And right. And I'd become an ego-less master, right? And really, it was all the energy that was released, right, actually fed me ego for 9 months, right? But I thought, right, that I was egoless, right, and that I was completely and utterly humble, right. And
yeah,
then it was pointed out in that AABB that we read, the AA Big Book, right?
yeah,
It pointed out that we only thought we had lost our pride. We only
mm,
thought. So
yeah.
it was a great big head trip. And some people call that the honeymoon period, right?
Pink fluffy cloud.
The pink fluffy cloud, and look at how important I am and the part I've got to play in the saving of humanity.
Yeah,
Now, mostly in the morning now, I get up and think, oh, fuck, here we go again.
yeah,
Right? And I get out of bed and think, oh, Jesus Christ, not another pain, right? And I have to get out of bed and start limbering up and doing stuff. Can I ask you, so I know that you'll tell me the truth. Do
yeah.
you judge anybody?
Yeah.
Good heavens. So really, we shouldn't be having this conversation because we're not supposed to judge anybody, Gary.
We're
And
not supposed
if
to.
you still judging people, you must be really low down on the spiritual scale. Right.
No, I'm being honest. I do.
Fucking me
Um,
too, mate. In fact, all the time, right? It's like because the ego judges, because it's got to
yeah,
evaluate situations that may
yeah,
be potentially dangerous. It's
yeah.
part of the human condition, isn't it, really?
It is. And we say try. What is it? Try and identify, not compare, and don't judge. Well, comparing is the same as judging in my book. There's no difference. It's just a different use of the same, the similar word. And do I compare? Yeah, of course I do. Of course I do. And the problem is, not the problem, the hard bit is to see it quick enough.
And I think that's the key, mate. Before we didn't know, but we were
Yeah,
pretending. I say I was pretending. Oh, a judgment came in there. I'll have to send them love. I'll have to send them love. That's the pretentiousness I'm talking about. And we
mm,
see it, don't we, in the spiritual community. And I've been there myself. I'm sending you love and light, right? And there'd
mm,
be parts of me thinking, fucking hell, I can't be arsed with all this, sending out this
yeah,
love and light. I'm shattered all the time. And most
yeah,
of my head is saying all the time, and I will do helpful things, right? Guided
mm,
by my heart. But my head's
mm.
saying, fucking knobhead. What a load of bollocks, knobhead, you know what I mean? And if people pick that up, so be it. That's where I am in this soul's progression thing, right?
So, we live by the, or try and live, and we do, we do generally live by these principles: honest, open, and willing. The question is how honest, open, and willing. Spiritual anonymity,
Yeah.
tradition 12. Spiritual anonymity is the foundation of, and he said to me, our little window cleaner mate, he said, you need to be more anonymous in your work. And I thought, oh shit, I thought I was Gary, head of AA. Um, and he was right. He was absolutely right. It's and I think that has two heads almost, in that I can be guided by spirit anonymously. Well, not can be, I am.
Yeah.
I know I am. And I don't know that's happening until it's revealed to me.
I
Uh,
I agree, and I think that's the problem because we all have different skills,
yeah,
abilities, innate talents, and stuff like that. I'm a showman, me. You might have
yeah,
noticed that. But that's my gift and my talent is to get out there and
yeah,
to express this stuff. Now, has that got to be curtailed because it's not anonymous or what you see? Because when I do these things and we get on here, but to me, do you know what anonymity means to me? It means we don't put a label on things. Anonymous, right? Means don't label it. Because as soon as we label something and put a label on it, right, I think it blocks and obstructs the flow. Because this to me, I call this the editor, right? Because there's a whole load of judgments going on here all the time, and it keeps jumping in every now and then. You know what I mean? But I honestly think, and that there are times when I'm not even thinking about anything, but I can almost like watch me gob going.
yeah,
And I think, fucking hell, who's saying those words?
yeah,
Especially when the light language comes through. You know,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Gary, I've no idea. I don't know, mate.
Before I was thinking, and I don't really get nervous now. And I thought, but I was a bit apprehensive about doing this. I thought, oh, I wonder where we're going to go with this. But I didn't plan anything because, and I know whatever we comes out between us now will come out, and that's, it might not be for you, it might not be for me, it might be, or it might be for no one. Don't know. But if we don't do it, we're never going to know.
Do you think that there are certain people or groups of people who are born more sensitive than the general population for a purpose? And are you one of those persons?
Yes to all of the above.
Yeah. And do you think, have a sense of that maybe you chose this pathway even before you were born?
I have to be careful here because I'm aware that you may well be setting traps.
No, no, I'm only
No,
continuing with what we
I,
started to talk about before we went live.
yeah. Do you know what? I was talking at the place I was in last night. Big Tony was there, and somehow we got onto this very subject. Literally got onto this very subject. And my answer to that is also yes. I do think that very much so.
I feel in my heart of hearts, right? I say heart of hearts because I'm going to talk about that in a minute, which is my soul. And the soul to me is the source of unconditional love,
Yeah.
but it isn't really because the soul's got its own agenda. So there's a condition in the soul as well. So there is some sort of differentiation. I think it's the spirit, right, that's got no differentiation, right? And it's got no motivation. It's quiet. There's no time in spirit, as we know, right? There's no space. There's nought. It's just spirit, right? But then the soul comes from that, or souls come from that. And that's when time and space materialize. Anyway, I'm going off on one now. But
No,
what I'm
it's
trying to
fine.
say is, I think that we've been programmed away purposely. We've been programmed away from the curriculum that we chose before we came here, right? And I think what happens is it's an energetic process that when we're born, the soul actually attracts because it's a program of attraction, not promotion, right?
mm,
Because most of us promote ourselves, don't we? We promote what we do, we promote this, we promote that. But really, if we just sit, have you ever found that if you just sit and do nothing, things come to you anyway,
yeah.
right? And that's
Um,
having faith and trust in the process. Just let me
yeah.
do this bit. So even when we're born, there's a whole stage being set on a daily basis through which we have to sort of traverse in order to feel the feelings of getting it wrong and getting it right,
Mm,
right from the day that we're born,
mm,
right?
mm,
But if we're misdirected away, because mostly through good intentions, we're misdirected away from people who've passed on traditions from eons of time to say, work hard, become somebody important in society, gather as much money as you can, get a big house, get a big car, do this, that, and the other, because they think that that's what success is. When in actual
uh,
fact, it might kick us completely off who we really are. Not really
mm,
who we are, but what we are.
mm.
See, you know me, I always hijack things, but over to you, quick wit.
No, no, that's fine. I'm pretty certain I've told you this because we talk about DNA, DNA being crystallized behavior. And just with you saying that, it reminded me that it's never just one thing. It's a mixture of all things. And my when I was born, I was the fifth generation born. So there was me, my mum, my nan, my nan's mum, and my nan's nan. So I can remember my great great nan was a little Irish woman who lived on Scotty Road in Liverpool in the tenements, and I can remember talking to her, and she used to save like little stacks of pennies and halfpennies on the fireplace. Um, And I can remember it's always stuck with me. Having a conversation with her because she was born, I think it was 1880, it was Jack the Ripper time, 1880, something like that. She was born, she lived till 100 and odd. Um, and I remember having the conversation with her about she remembered talking to her nan who was born in the 1700s. Right. So if we talk about DNA and how that affects us, in part, I have been affected or mothered or parented by somebody from Ireland in the 1700s. That that doesn't fit with today's curriculum. It doesn't, but it's there. And that, come,
No, 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 that's great, mate. No, I agree entirely. Same as me. I think there's a very strong Celtic connection in our
yeah,
family. Obviously, the Irish connection, but Celtic anyway. All the way through Wales, Scotland, all that sort of thing. There's a deeper thing that comes through. And I think people like ourselves were born highly sensitive people in a toxic world, so we build up a defense mechanism or even almost like a crust to try and keep this horrible world away from us. But the world's not the problem. Actually, the world's perfect to grow up in. It's how we, even as children, how we emotionally process the information, right? And that's why they told us, didn't they? Even pointing fingers when you were a kid, right? It means that you put yourself in the victim. There it goes. That you're the victim. Soon as you point the finger outside of yourself, you've just lost all the power, right?
yeah,
You've just taken away and you're blaming external circumstances for your basic emotional insecurity and lack of growth. And when I heard all this, I thought, ah, fuck, I'm not having it. I'm not having it because I wasn't ready, right? Which reminds me, why do people who are supposed to be like here as maybe leaders, if you like, whatever, right? Why do we have to, right, hit a complete and utter rock bottom? Why the insistence that we have to hit that rock bottom?
I think because that crust that you're talking about is is so thick skinned, and it becomes so subconscious to us. We have to be. Carl Jung said, right, most people don't look low enough for God.
Yeah, yeah, I like that.
And, and I thought, as soon as I read that, I thought, fuck, I get that. I absolutely get it because I thought I wanted to rule the world Today, I just want to live in it. I just want to live in it, and be of use. And I tried to fucking rule it. I was 25, living in a fucking five-bedroomed house with a swimming pool. Thought it was Richard Branson. Turns out it wasn't. Like, but
Yeah.
um, yeah, it's that. What? Why do we have to be broken? Because this is a program, or the stuff we do or talk about is ego deflation at depth.
I agree, mate. It's not about destroying the ego. It's
No?
about breaking the bonds because
Yeah.
this is my feeling, could be wrong, be different people have different ways. I don't think that we need to destroy anything because that sort of defeats the purpose, really.
Mhm.
But I think that we have to understand it's the bonds that attach us to things that need to break. And those
The
bonds are
bondage of self.
the bondage of self. And there's the prayer, isn't it? You know,
Yeah.
God, I offer myself to thee to
To do.
build
Yeah.
with me and do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that
Yeah.
I may better do your will. Take away, oh, it comes, here it comes, coming up my legs now. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. Where two or more are gathered, mate, this just
Yeah.
means that we're in contact with the proper
Yeah.
thing to me. It's a confirmation of you're doing well, boys, carry on. But that prayer, request, whatever, I'm not religious anymore. I used to
Yeah.
be, I'm not anymore. Everything's a scientific experiment to me now, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So it's so it may bear witness to those I would help. But Gary, even in that, it means that we have to go through shit and people have to see us going through shit and
Mhm.
coming out the other end. And then they say to us, Christ Almighty, we thought you were going to be dead and all that. And you've done all this stuff. How has it happened to you? And then you go, this is the message. What you're looking for is not in there, son. It's in there.
Yeah.
Tap into there and ask the question, hello, what do I do next, please? Well, Gary,
Yeah.
it took me 9 years because my head was screaming, what a load of old shite. It's in your heart and all this.
Yeah.
It's all my heart, what a load of old nonsense. It's true, mate. It's true.
I
Tap
was
on your
talking.
heart.
I
Stick
was
your ear
talking
in. This
to.
is what I do. My ears attached to me heart or my heart of heart, and they go, hello. I'm not quite sure what to do here. Will you give us a clue? Thanks very much. I'll leave it over to you when you send the information. Goodbye. And carry on with my day.
I do the same thing. I do that kind of press on me, and I am just to clarify, if anyone's listening, I am not religious. I know you're not religious. If you are religious, absolutely fine. But we're not talking about a religious God here. If that's what floats your boat, absolutely fine. Um, Ray used to say to me, and I'm sure he will have done to you as well, the difference between character and personality. And you were
Absolutely.
describing character before. It just sits there. It doesn't do anything. Just sits there. And your personality is personal to us. That mechanism that or mechanisms that we've developed.
Yeah,
And what will happen is for me, and this is what I see now, and this is what I call the distinguishing the truth from the false. I can walk into a situation, and my first thought is, how is this going to affect me? Whatever it is. And then my head will go hunting for information. It'll start searching for information that I've built up. And when I can feel myself doing that, I'm like, oh, hang on, hang on, hang on. I have to remind myself that up to there, I'm okay, but it's this bit above here that, I have to remind myself that this bit and this bit are on the same side. And
exactly.
sometimes I
Exactly.
forget.
And if anybody's interested, there's an organization, can't remember the name, but it'll come back to me as well. Roger. No, it'll come back to me. He explains these different stages and what he calls is a soul ego contract, right? That the
Yeah,
soul ego contract is put in place before we're born. So
yeah,
it's almost like the soul and the ego, if you like, and the character and the personality. They have a conflab before you come here, and they agree to work together. And I see this in a sort of a way. And as someone's put down here, Jose, I think Jose. he's put down, that the ego, which has directed life up to this point, has to basically take the back seat, right? And I feel that as well, that the soul at some point knocks you on the back of the head. That's the rock bottom. Smacks you like that. Will you shut the fuck up and listen to what I'm saying to you? And it almost like infiltrates the human body. And if the ego keeps surrendering from one moment to the next, it's almost like the soul starts to inhabit the body then. And there's a like almost like a dissolving of the soul and the ego. And it's almost like a reunification process. I've no idea what I'm saying here, but I'm going to go with it. And that's almost like a recombinant effect, and that's like a DNA expression. Like there's a recombining of what was fragmented. But in truth, there's never been a fragmentation at all. It's all one. It's just that the ego separates everything into bits and pieces.
So what you're saying, to summarize that, is you have to surrender to win.
Surrender to win, and then exactly surrender to win. But the ego, our egos, whether they be the submissive type like Uriah Heep, humble, hello, I'll do anything for you. Yes, leave it with me and I'll do it. Or fucking get out of my way, I'm coming through. Whether it be that one, right? Because it depends on your physical characteristics when you were born. I was a
Absolutely.
very physically incapable young man because I had all sorts of spinal problems. So I was
Mm,
very clingy to my mother. Now, our Brendan, right?
mm,
Oh,
mm,
Brendan, he's the physical one, you need. So he was like a push forward, get out me fucking way, I'm coming through. And I was, hello, darling, I'll help you, you know what I mean? So when you start to see these things about yourself, at first, you could be like, oh my God, it's so fucking hell. Yes, this is me. So before serenity must come
the emotional
emotional
disturbance.
turmoil.
Yeah,
So if you're on a spiritual pathway, only according to the way I see things, you've got to go through hell to come out, really.
yeah,
Right. But the other thing is when the truth hits you, we can react in one of two ways. Either we laugh nervously, as we
mm,
go, fucking Jesus, that's me, right? Or we go, I'm not fucking having it. They're just the two parts, or our hemispheres, right, getting collared.
yeah. I think. Well, I don't think I know. You mentioned it, the before serenity, the emotional disturbance. I'd be all right if I was just walking around without emotions. But what I've learned is that I've learned that the serenity, for serenity to come, there has to be an emotional disturbance. You could call it a conflict. There's no change ever without conflict. So I've kind of as much as it's shite when you're in it, and I hate it, I know that I'll come out the other end of it, and something will come from it. I know that today, provided I'm doing the stuff that I have to do for the breed of person that I am. And I have to be disciplined, Joe, with that. I do have to be disciplined. Um, and that's uh, we were talking before we went on live about why do some people what happens why do some people whatever it is get it and some people don't, and I don't know is the answer. I don't know. Well, I do. It's not wanting it enough because
I agree. See, I know what the problem of the whole world is, Gary, and it tells us in that book.
go
And
on.
this is, I didn't want to hear this, mate, and you know this very well because we've talked about it a lot.
Yeah,
Selfishness, self-centeredness,
it's the root
that we
cause.
think is the root of all our problems, driven by 100 forms of fear, right? We step on the toes of our fellows and they retaliate seemingly without provocation. That's called karma, right? And
It is.
our karma is crystallized in our DNA. And not only do we have personal crystallized DNA from this lifetime that we're in now, or this dimension, if we're going to do time dimensions and stuff, but there's also that ancestral stuff that
Mm,
goes back right to
mm,
source consciousness
mm,
itself.
mm,
And it's
mm,
almost like we're getting guided now back in a big spiral like that. And the
mm.
thing that bloops up, do you know when you think you've cracked it and then the next day you think you feel like killing yourself? One of them, oh, I've cracked it now, right? And the fuck, I can't stand it. Anyway, so that's what I feel is happening. And that's what I feel is happening to the whole of the human race is that what we've buried down now, right? There's like almost like a big push right behind it all. So we're forced to face the choices we've made and our ancestors have made in
Mhm.
order to go forward. Because what used to work then, it might have worked then,
Mhm.
is definitely not working now. And that's why the
No,
world's falling apart, isn't it, really? You know. Can I
no,
just say something? I mean, sorry, mate, sorry to put in. Right, we only thought we had lost our pride, right? So this is about real humility. How did we get, or I'll tell you how I got to real humility, if I've got it at all, because I mean, I'm not
yeah,
quite sure what it is. It's a feeling, I think. How did I get to it? I had to make a list, Gary, of all the persons I had
yeah,
harmed,
yeah,
right? Even from childhood and those that were presented to me in my memory. I had to write down a list of all those people that I'd harmed and became willing to make amends to them all
yeah.
directly, directly, except when to do
Unless it
so
was,
would harm them or
yeah,
others. Right. And that's why I needed the guidance of an experienced man, my sponsor. Right. And he said, no, you can't go back to old girlfriends because you'll kiss and make up and maybe all sorts of other problems will ensue then.
yeah,
Right. But I had to go and he helped me because where two or more are gathered, we get guidance. He said, go and do that one first. Right.
yeah,
And that was the one I was the most afraid of. Right.
yeah.
And there used to be a film, an American series called My Name is Hal, right? And he was going through an inventory list. But it was not just that, Gary. All those people that I'd harmed, and then I had to write a list of all the people that had harmed me, right?
Yeah.
And I had to see that I attracted, right, at various levels, every single situation, right? Every single situation. I chose something there that was self-protective and defensive. It was all
Couldn't
based on
agree.
fear or
Yeah,
pride.
yeah. Couldn't agree more. It's if I on the rare occasions now that I do ring, for example, I could say I'm worried about this situation in China. I think there's going to be World War III, and I know he would say to me, "Well, what's your part in it?"
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm less kind than that. I say, what the fuck's that got to do with you? Right.
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
I'm worried about next week. Oh, what's that the fucking got to do with you? You've already
yeah,
got today. Oh, you
yeah,
forgot about that. Yeah, but what about tomorrow? What's that got to do with you? But
yeah,
it's Christmas Day, just another day, right?
yeah, yeah,
Simple principles. Get up, have a word with your heart of hearts if you like, and just say, what are we doing today, boss? Right?
yeah,
Because it's easy for me because I look at my deeper self, which is my higher self, which is my innate intelligence, which is me at a different level. It's my employer, right?
mhm,
So my
mhm,
ego self is okay. What are we doing today, boss? That's how I look at it, right? Big mind, what have you got on the cards for us today? And I try and sit there. Sometimes I get a clear thing, and if I don't get anything, I just close down then and get on with my day and something fires in. And then I try and act upon that information that I
information
receive then.
receipt.
Yeah,
I,
yeah,
I always find if I want big answers, I have to ask big questions.
yeah, yeah. I agree, mate. And never
Sometimes
stop asking questions. If you don't know, just keep asking, isn't it?
there's no such thing as a bad question.
No.
The only thing that will stop me is what's he going to think of me if I ask that?
Yeah. And Gary, I really don't give two shits. You know this about
Mhm.
what anybody else thinks of me. And I didn't when I was drinking as well. So it's almost like a parallel thing that goes on.
Yeah,
That when I was drinking, I couldn't give a shit what anybody thought about me. And then I
yeah,
went through this middle bit where I was like, all these things used to come to me and think, oh my God, what's happened to me? And now I'm in a different places. I don't care what anybody thinks of me, but I do care about them as well.
yeah.
Because before I didn't care about anybody except myself, mate. You know what I mean?
No, 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 I get it.
Yeah.
So Ray, he used to say to me, when I was learning my trade, if you like, and I'd think, I'll sort him out here. I'll have an argument with him. I'll sort him out. I was soon to learn that wasn't the case because he'd just quite simply go, "I'm not talking to that.
Yeah.
I'm not talking to that." And I thought, you cheeky bastard. But what he was doing, he was just drawing me attention to something. He was drawing me attention to, but this is pointless. There's no point. Vinny used to put the phone, if he'd do that with Vinny, Vinny used to just put the phone down on him and he'd hear click, click. and it works.
Yeah.
It's no good whatsoever feeding me full of sympathy because I'll manipulate it. I'll manipulate it.
Sympathy. It's that between shit and something else and
Syphilis.
the
Yeah.
syphilis. Yeah, yeah. It's like sympathy. Empathy is another trap in my view, right? I think what happens is if you are a humble person, you're more compassionate, and compassionate to me is cool. I think that empathy is mixed up with what they call the lower heart vibration, and it's like it's full of fantasy, right? And it's full of sentimentality. And I think
Yeah.
sentimentality, right, is another trap as well, because sentire means to feel and
Mm.
mental means to make up with your thinking. And I think that's where I was. I was like Mr. Romantic, you know what I mean? And I could like weave a great big romantic story, and it worked bloody brilliantly, like for a long, long time, you know what I mean? Got me into all sorts of trouble, especially with like fiancés and things like that. But anyway,
Yeah.
that's another story. But the thing about it is, I thought that feeling that was emerging, but it was all made up, Gary.
Mm.
Even the anger, the arguments, if I was having an argument with somebody and the phone goes, I could stop that immediately, go and answer the phone and do that. Oh, it's lovely to hear you. And then, and then go back and pick up where it
Go
finished
back
off.
to yeah, 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 yeah,
Because, the stage performer, always living in like two worlds. But when a real fucking emotion came up, I couldn't stop that in the middle of it, mate. You know what I mean? And that's what's happened to me is as the caps come off, right? And still it comes up, stuff emerges. The last few days I've been, oh fucking hell. And I see things on the telly. Tell you what gets me. Britain's Got Talent. When like a big fat person comes on and they all look, they walk up like that
yeah.
and get the microphone and they hit their head with the microphone because they're that nervous. And then they start singing. I'm like, oh fucking hell, isn't that lovely? You
You
know,
know,
my missus looks at me and she goes, dickhead, and that's
the
her
bit
love
that the
language.
bit that worries me about doing this is that the more is constantly revealed bit. It's like, oh fucking. But I can't not do it. I can't not do it.
What's the most important thing in your life?
My sobriety.
That's the end of the story, mate.
Yeah.
Unless we put our sobriety first, and sobriety it just doesn't mean drink. It could be
No.
drugs, it could be eating, it could be gambling, it could be sex, whatever. Sobriety to me means emotional calm and
Yeah.
clear-mindedness.
Yeah.
That's the
That's
most important thing to
yeah.
me. And if I
Yeah.
have to go like that and walk away from a conversation without giving any excuse, that's what I have to do, and I'm getting good at that now.
When I say my sobriety, I'm not. I mean, I am talking about drink on one level, but I'm talking about my emotional sobriety.
Yeah, me
That's
too.
the because if I don't have that, everything else will go anyway.
Yeah,
Because what's the line? Alcohol is a subtle foe.
yeah,
You know,
indeed.
if I don't live and behave in a certain way, I might get away with it for a week, a year, a month. I might get away with it for 5 years, but eventually I will turn back into what it was. If they invented a pill, right? A pill that meant you could never drink again. You would never drink again. Would you take it?
If they invented a pill that I would
That
never
meant you
drink
would
again.
never be able to drink again. Would you take it?
No,
So
no,
I am.
because no, because I think it's what the way we're living now is tied
Yeah,
up with soul's progress, isn't it? And
yeah,
our soul's evolution. Right.
yeah.
Hey,
No,
don't get me wrong. I still have, I have a dream that when I get to heaven, right, the first thing as the door opens, there'll be a bleeding bar there selling the best lager in the world with a drop of lime in it. You know what I mean? And then there'll be a golf course, right, and there'll be some scantily clad bodies over there, and there'll be, the picture of heaven, right? And
yeah.
Lucky, Lucky, the dog and cat when I had when I was a kid, they'd be there to greet me and all that. You know what I mean? Right? Yeah, I'm not like Holy Joe, for Christ's sake, you know what I mean? If anybody got into my head, I mean, because you get the contents of my head quite often, but
Yeah,
if anybody got in there, I'd be locked up, no problem.
yeah. Good job we don't go around with a bubble above our
Yeah.
heads, innit?
Yeah. Be like Tom
Uh,
Cruise, that Minority Report where they tap into your head and they can tell what you're thinking and all that sort of business. I'd be well off the streets now, mate.
you've been talking quite a bit
I'm
about.
talking a lot, mate. I always do.
No, 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 no. You've been in one way or another about yogic practices at the moment. What is there any?
Yeah, yeah. I think all this that we're doing leads us back to yoga, but not the
Okay.
asana, not the asanas or the asanas you want to call them, because that's a physical posture. They call them arsanas because everyone wears tight buns and not drop scones and stuff like
Yeah.
this. You know what I mean? So you can have tight tits and nice bodies and all this sort of business, right? But the yoga is about a reunion, and that's what I think this whole business is about. It's about the spiritual practice, and there's Patanjali's like 8 sutras, right? Which involve physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual components. And I think that we have to look at all those things as well. Because as
Yeah.
the soul comes in, what it does is it highlights areas in our body physically, right, that need work on. And how do you know that they need work on? Because they're painful. So they'll either need stretching, they'll either need, they need some sort of a natural thing. Because pain is simply the obstruction to the free flow of vital energy. Now, in Indian philosophy, yogic philosophy, that's called prana. In Chinese philosophy, that's chi. In
Yeah.
Japanese, it's
Mhm.
ki. It could be the ruach, the Holy Spirit. There's all sorts of different names for the flow. And I
Yeah.
think, how do you know when you've got this right? Because you're going with the flow. There's no obstruction to it. And are you creating the flow? No, the flow is flowing through you because that's what unconditional love is. There's no obstruction to it. That's what it is. So we don't love something, right? We love everything because it's flowing through us. It's not aimed at anybody in particular because that's what human love is. And human love attaches and it takes prisoners. And I've taken a good few prisoners in my time, mate, and they've all tried to get away when they haven't loved me as much as the one before.
Mhm. Do you think, because as you know, I study a lot of stuff with Ray, the Tao, the I Ching, and everything seems to lead back to our book in one way or another, or somehow we manage to link it back. And I've got a friend who's a yoga, I don't know, higher teacher. She teaches the teachers, if you know what I mean. And we've been speaking about the 8 arms that you've just spoken about of yoga. And it sounds very much, I don't know, profess to know anything about it at all, really. But from what you've just said, it sounds very much as if that would lead back to the stuff that we do anyway.
Well, because they're spiritual principles, aren't they?
Yeah.
Alcoholics Anonymous hasn't stolen those from anywhere. It's just working from spiritual principles.
Principles, yeah.
So it's principles before personalities.
Yeah.
Because persona, it's like again, to be lecturing mode.
Mm,
Persona means mask, and they're the masks that we've put in order
mm,
to defend ourselves, probably in the first 7 years of our life. And
yeah.
most of us, until we realize, are still working off those defense mechanisms or coping skills and
Mm,
strategies that we developed before we were even 7. Give me the
mm,
child until he is 7, and I will give you the man. The
yeah.
Jesuits knew that. They were brilliant at conditioning people through fear or favor. That's what's happened to all of us, mate. And
Yeah.
the world's waking up now to think, hang on a second, there's something not right about this. We're working our bollocks off here. We're getting poorer. They're getting richer. Something's going wrong here. And that's definitely happening very
Yeah.
quickly now. If you look
Uh,
at the state of the world, but probably we have got a part to play. But even pointing at it and moaning about it still misses the point, doesn't it? Because I say to my soul, I say, okay, I'm looking at all that now, and it's like a diabolical mess.
yeah.
Is there something that I can do? And the message I get is, yeah, take no notice of that because if you give it any energy, you're going to drain yourself. Why don't you use your energy to create something nice and beautiful and make people laugh if you can, right? And that's what I try and do, Gary.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to
Um,
get to the real, sorry, mate. I want to get to the real crux now. I know I'm sort of
yeah.
directing this because that's what I do. But
No.
the crux of this is, right, when is there anything that you're keeping hold of that you're going to turn and take to the grave with you because you haven't shared it with another human being?
Oh, um, I can't think of anything because I would share it.
And that's what I feel is the step to humility.
Yeah.
It's to write down this. I've done that. You've done that. I don't think. And if something comes up, I'd be on the phone to you straight away
Yeah.
or somebody else, and I'd say, "This has come up, right?
Yeah.
You've
Yeah.
murdered somebody in blackout. Don't you remember?" Well, no, I don't remember, right? Well, this has come up now. I'm sharing it with you, right? It's like, you see, we had to go through, didn't we? We had to look at depth. We had to take our conscious mind and we had to plunge the depths by doing those lists I talked about. The people that we didn't like or the people that we'd harmed, right?
Mm.
And what are the things that we had to look at, right? We had to look at basically four different instincts, wasn't it? We had
Yeah.
to look at personal security. That's all the stuff
Yeah.
about, money and
Yeah.
all that. So money and homes and looking after the kids and all that, all that stuff. Then there's the next one, sex, right?
Mm.
Have you hurt anybody or sex, or did you agree to having it, right, when you didn't want to? So you put yourself in a position to be harmed. Yes. So there's that one,
Mm.
right? And what about society? Have you always been pushing yourself for a place at the top of the table, or did
Social.
you? Yeah,
Yeah.
social instinct. Yeah. Did you hide under the table because you had social anxiety? And then there's the final one, it's the self-esteem one. How
Mm.
do you feel about yourself? Do
Mm.
you care for yourself? Not how much do you love yourself? Not doing, I look in the mirror and I say, I love you. Fuck that for a lark. It's, are you really caring for yourself? Or do you keep saying yes when you should be saying no? Right. And why can't you say no then? I'm busy. I'm sorry, I can't do that. Right, because your self-esteem's at the bottom. So that's what this is about, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
about overcoming pride by sharing how you really feel and what you think about things. You can say it in a nice way. You can say, well, actually, this is the way I see that. Could be
Yeah.
right, could be wrong, I'm not sure. Glad to listen to what you've got to say, even though your head's saying, what a load of bollocks, right? But, or does the fear one? And every time we do this, Gary, don't we? We begin to outgrow fear.
Mm.
So this
Mm.
is about personal souls development, right?
Mm.
And it's got nothing to do with how much money you've got. Because I know, look, I know millionaires, Gary, who want to top themselves
Yeah.
because they're that unhappy with
Yeah.
themselves, right? So it's
Mm.
got nothing to do with that. This is all about courage to be honest with yourself. And I've found you can only have the courage to be honest with yourself when you tell somebody else what you've done,
Yeah.
right? And Gary, I honestly feel I've got nothing in me. I've divulged it, and I've done in drink. I'm sure you did the same. I did some really shitty, horrible things,
Yeah.
mate.
Yeah.
And I hurt a lot of people. And here's the
Mm.
next thing is, even when I didn't drink, mate, I did some terribly shitty things when I didn't drink as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's divulging that. And most people say, yeah, well, I'm a bit like that myself. That's what starts the conversation flowing, really.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's so what would you say are the blocks to that? One of the things I say in whatever I say it to is, please take away all my blocks and defects. Please help me be of use. My blocks and defects, the main ones are fear and pride.
It says in the book, doesn't it? The two main obstacles to true spiritual progress are fear and pride. And fear, it's talking about fear is the emotional child, right? The little frightened kid who's got to
Yeah.
grow up, right? And the pride is the talking about is intellectual pride, the
Yeah. Yeah.
knowledge and the patterns that I've stored over a lifetime.
Yeah.
Because if I keep referring back to knowledge, and this is the thing about memory, mate, I think that our help comes from beyond memory, even beyond what's
Yeah.
called the Akashic records, right? In that
Basically,
neutral space, that like it's almost like a black hole of nothingness where everything resides.
place of neutrality.
Place for by this time we have been placed in a situation of neutrality or a place of
So
neutrality.
problems didn't exist for us.
It's taken away from us, but
Yeah.
not for nothing, right? It's by the grace of God, whatever that means, right?
Yeah.
But we have to make ourselves ready for it by taking actions beforehand.
Oh, a 1,000,000%. It's we have to turn up suited and booted. We have to, if you're asking for water, try spitting in that hand and praying in that one and see which one fills up first.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
I'll have to work that
God
out,
can
mate.
move mountains, but don't forget to take your shovel.
Yeah. Oh no, I agree with you. Yeah. Yes, God says, of course I'll help you. Here's the shovel. What the fuck's that for, God? Right?
Mm.
It's like when people used to ask me, I've stolen a lot of money, right? Am I forgiven? Oh, you are forgiven. This is how you're going to pay it back. What do you
Yeah,
mean? You've just said I'm forgiven. Said you're forgiven for doing it because you can see the reason you did it now, but you've still got to pay it back. Let's work out a financial plan, right?
yeah. And I think, well, I don't think, again, I don't think I know because I've done it and I see it. We are programmed to always look for an easier, softer option,
Yeah.
and the fucking isn't one.
No,
If
there
if
isn't.
anybody's listening up, the fucking isn't one.
You can you can send me all the fucking love and light you like, right?
Yeah,
But if I've got to go up and knock on someone's door and say, "Look, I'm sorry for everything that I've done here," right? You can't send some sort of somebody a surrogate in your place to say sorry for you. You know what I mean? And you can't permanently do for somebody what they've eventually got to do for themselves as well. And I do that, mate. I save people, and I still do.
yeah.
Yeah, I'll say to I'll write that bit of that assignment for you. Don't worry about. And I think, Joe. You're not helping them, mate, because they're not growing in understanding and effectiveness.
It's a hard one though, isn't it? It's especially when it's your family.
Oh, your wife.
Yeah, yeah. But it is though, isn't it? It's for me. It tends to it goes out the window when my kids are involved. We were talking last. I was talking with Tony last night about this social media stuff, and he said I've never done it recently, but I'm doing this. He's doing painting at the moment, right? And part of it's going on social media, and he said, "Fucking hell," you know what he speaks like, "Fucking hell." And I'm fucking looking on social media every fucking minute see if they haven't liked it, and if they haven't liked it, I'm like, "Oh fuck."
Yeah.
And I was like, do you know what? I'm a bit the same myself, if I'm honest with you.
Christ, I
You know,
am, mate. I put even on this, I'll upload this, and then in a couple of days I'll look. Oh, we got that many hits. Oh, must because we made a promise, didn't we, that we'd do whatever it took to
yeah,
grow in understanding and effectiveness of carrying the message.
yeah.
Gary, what's the message?
Oh, now, funny you should ask, because having had a spiritual awakening, having had, so what's a spiritual awakening? Spiritual is our thinking. So having had a spiritual awakening as the result, not a result, the result of these steps. We carried it or tried to carry this message to alcoholics and practice these principles, spiritual principles in all our affairs. So the message is that having had a spiritual awakening, a change in my thinking as the result of these steps, we try to carry this message. So this message is that if you do this, your thinking will change.
Yeah, yeah. The psychic change that's needed.
Psychic of
So
the
we
mind.
take practical action steps, right, in order to have a psychic change, which changes the way that we think, which
Yeah,
alters our behavior,
yeah.
which realigns us basically then with our soul's purpose, right?
So are we saying it's a behavioral or a higher power or God program? As I see it, right, it is behavioral. It's behavioral because I have to behave in a certain way and live in a certain way to stay well. The problem is that I don't have the power to do that because I can't.
No, no, but you do have the power, right? Because we feel new power to flow in,
Yeah,
right? So we take the step that de-obstructs the problem, that allows more power to come in, that allows us to change them, right? The problem was initially that we were powerless, or because the power or the vitality was obstructed because we were completely in the defensive and everything was like stagnant, if you like.
yeah,
And so once you start to remove one block, you start to feel the tide flowing again, and then off you go then, and you become a better surfer, don't you? Do you know what I
yeah,
mean? And
yeah,
don't you? If you feel emotionally disturbed, it's simply because the flow of unconditional love that's not coming from you, it's coming from source itself. The flow of unconditional love has been obstructed in some way. So
yeah,
it makes us feel emotionally disturbed. So rather than emotionally react and point outwards and say, "Look what you've done to me. I'm emotionally disturbed now." We go like that. The finger goes like that. Ooh, fucking hell, and goes back to us. Step back, sit down, open your heart, say, "Why am I emotionally disturbed there?" Right. And so we do feel new power. This is just the way I look at it, really. So how do you know when you're not on the program or whatever you want to call it, you feel emotionally disturbed? So if you're open and flowing, just keep going. You don't have to work anything out. Keep going.
So we would call it irritable, restless, and discontent.
Nervous, irritable, discontented. If you've got any of them, it's because your ego's back in some
Yeah.
way, right? And it's having a go at you. And so, what's the result? If you can't work it out for yourself, I'll get on touch with you or send you the
Yeah.
WhatsApp. Say, I've got all these feelings here. You'll say, right, have they gone now? Or let's have a chat or whatever, But I don't, it's a chat where two or more are gathered, right, for
Yeah.
good purpose, right?
Yeah.
Then some solution, and it'll be a solution that you've never even thought of before.
Exactly. Do you know what I was thinking before this? I thought I don't really know what we're going to talk about or how, but I trust that the intuition will flow between us, and I will change because of this, and I will, and I may not see what it is, but something I will have picked up anonymously. I will have picked up something that I may or may not use, or it may be used 5 years down the line for someone else.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know, mate. And that's the thing is, after these conversations or with whoever I'm talking to, I mean, I'm as open as I possibly can be.
Yeah.
And there may be big gulfs that need to be further opened. I don't know. But
Mm.
how am I in how the Irish used to say, how are you in yourself? Right.
Yeah.
And that's what I
Yeah.
say to people, how are you doing in yourself? And they go, what do you mean? How do you feel on the inside? Is everything all right? Because I can look at somebody and tell whether they're miserable or unhappy or, this, that, and the other. And so I have a habit now of like trying to tease out, go on, tell us the truth. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
and then they say, well, what it is, and then you sometimes trap for about an hour, then can't get away, you know what I mean? But that's part of the job, isn't it? And
It is, and I think we spoke about, or you spoke about the instincts earlier. Um, that is what happens is when that disturbance comes in, it's generally when one of those instincts has been triggered, and you will feel it. You feel it physically in your stomach because you'll
yeah.
feel it go, "Oof," and then it'll go up into your head and doing a million mile an hour until I'm in the shower winning the argument from 3 days ago.
Absolutely. So that's the one where you're sitting on the stool in the bar with a few down you, and you're in Fantasy Island because you expect someone to come in and to rescue you. You win the. I'll be happy if I win the lotto. I'll be happy if I have a different partner. I'll be happy. I'll be happy. I'll be happy. I think that your happiness comes from how aligned you are with your soul's purpose. Right.
100%.
Whatever that means, mate. And I don't even try and work it out now. And could we be wrong? Of course we can be
Yeah,
bleeding wrong, right?
yeah.
And do I
Just on
care?
that one. Above all, we resisted fantasizing
Yeah. Above all, above all,
above
let's see
everything.
what that means. Oh, it means above all, we reject fantasizing. So
Yeah,
you've got to be in touch with how you're thinking in order to do that. But beforehand, everything was a fantasy, but there was no space, there was no witness to say, oh, you're fucking fantasizing again, you soft bastard. And it says in the book, doesn't it? It says the way you're going to be successful in the world is by doing things, right? You've got to take action and work towards what you feel is the correct way forward. It would be lovely, Gary. I have the same thing all the time. I say to Catherine, like, I've done the pools or I've done the lotto for tonight, and there's a part of me that thinks it would be so lovely for that. And then my head goes off onto, I think a million would be enough, right? And I'm off on then. No, honest to Christ, well, would I have to split it? Do I have to give any to me kids? And I'm off on, I've won £1 million and already
yeah,
it's not enough, right? That's what I'm talking about, right?
yeah. No, I get it. I get
Yeah.
it. But having had a spiritual awakening, spiritual our thinking, a higher level of thinking, um, I don't think you can change your thinking with your thinking. But what I think you can do is you can act your way into it. Just fucking do it.
I agree. Well, JFDI, I call that just fucking do it. I think I
Yeah,
should do this, but I'm not quite sure. I'm a bit indecisive at the moment. Oh, who cares?
yeah.
Just do something and see
Just
what
do it.
happens next. And if
Yeah,
you make a cock up, then you've learned something. And if
yeah,
it works, well, you've got a bit further on.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think somebody put on like about the mistakes, about it's about something to do with, you can't progress unless you make mistakes and stuff like
No,
that,
you can't.
No, no.
We have to do it wrong to learn how to do it right.
That was my thing. I wouldn't take actions just in case it didn't happen. Do you know what I mean? And now I
Yeah,
just I'll do anything now because I mean maybe that's a function of age as well, but I don't think so. People say to me, "Oh yeah, but you're a lot older than a lot of people now. You probably learn from experience." I think, fucking hell, I'm the slowest person to learn from experience. I have to
yeah,
do things 100 bleeding times before I think maybe this is the correct way. That all those
yeah.
people were telling me
Unfortunately
for
for us, pain is the touchstone of growth, isn't it?
It is indeed. Pain is the touchstone. So, in a way, if you feel courageous enough, you can say as you get up in the morning, let's have a day where you show me the truth of me. Right?
Oh,
If you've got the courage of that one, please show me the truth of me at every single moment today, please. You probably wouldn't want to enter the, you probably wouldn't want to get out of bed, right? Or open the front door.
no, no. I'll stay under the covers today.
Yeah, but no, Gary. Honestly, I'm in a place now where I welcome. Like I think, okay, go show us. I'm not bothered. I'm happy to do it. And the spiritual life is not a theory. We have to live it.
We do. Page
Yeah,
83.
yeah. And it's a program of action,
Mm.
mate. I love you like mad.
Love you too.
Thank you, and I hope people have found some use for that. Really, I'm going to say it now anyway. I'm going to say it. If people want to find out more about this, even though that they mightn't be drinkers. Go and have a look, and you can get it online, or you can be proper person and buy it if you like the big book,
Mm.
right? I mean, keep AA going. But the whole point about it is, in there are the solutions, or the
Yeah,
solution to every single human problem that anybody can have. And I
yeah,
remember Ray saying this years ago. If people paid for this because they thought it was so important, right? I mean, they make millions and millions and millions and millions, but the root cause of all our suffering as human beings is egocentricity,
yeah.
right?
Mm.
Self-centeredness, as some people call it. Oh no, it's the other way around. Selfishness, self-centeredness, that we think is the root of all our problems. And they call that egocentricity now. And everybody's going on about, oh, he's a narcissist and she's a narcissist and all that. Well, I found out about me that there's a narcissist in me, Gary, but there's also an empath as well. And not
Yeah, same.
until not until the yin and the yang of those two components start working in harmony with one another can we have peace of mind. And that's what this program offers you. It doesn't offer you money. It offers you peace of mind.
Yeah, and you can't have one without the. And we're not saying female. We're
No,
not saying
no,
female.
no.
We're saying
Feminine and
feminine.
masculine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Feminine and
Also,
masculine.
we've spoken about AA, but I think it's important to highlight that there's 100 and I think it's 140 different fellowships now. Emotions Anonymous, Gamblers Anonymous, NA, Cocaine Anonymous, not Chocolate Anonymous, Smoke, you name it. But they all use the same program.
And I know as well that it was because I was always emotionally disturbed. I drank the way I drank to quell the emotional disturbance
Mm,
because it
mm,
changed the way I felt.
mm,
But
mm.
unfortunately, in the process of changing me feelings, me thinking changed as well.
Yeah,
Right. And a lot of the time it would release me and temporarily disinhibit me from the my own
yeah,
head. But sometimes it was ambush me in the other way around. And that's
yeah.
when I wanted to kill myself, you know what I mean?
It inhibits the inhibitions, and it does the alcohol does just enough to seduce you into feeling at one.
Yeah. And I could never tell because me thought was, I clearly remember it. I'm only going to have a couple or three or four
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
just to get to that place where I'm like humming. You know what I mean?
The
Could
sweet
never
spot. Yeah,
tell because you couldn't tell what had built up in your unconscious in the week. You know what I mean? It could be a happy one. I'd be so happy and think, oh, look, I've cracked it. And the next day I'd be looking at you thinking, what the fuck are you looking at? I'm going to kill you if you don't look at me like that again.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
No, no, it's interesting, mate. It's a program of self-discovery, but it's a program of letting go, isn't it? Letting
It
go of
is,
all the
and
programs.
what I would say is, without the most pivotal day in my life, without a shadow of a doubt, bar nothing was the day I walked into that room. It's the best thing I've ever done. It is absolutely the best thing I've ever done. I look back to the person that was before, and I genuinely don't recognize that person.
I don't, although I have days when I am that person.
Yeah,
You know, honest to God, I become that person again, but I know what it feels like now. I suppose that's like the angel and the devil on the shoulder,
yeah,
but I can almost like feel the shadow self move in, right?
mm,
And part of me, this other part of me goes, oh, fucking Jesus, I don't want
yeah,
that. And I have to
mm,
sort of come away. It's like an emergency, actually. I'd have to
yeah,
get onto somebody and say, I'm feeling like this, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Because I
yeah,
never
yeah,
want to get into that position, right, where I lose the mental defense against that first drink.
yeah.
And I know that the only time that's going to come is when I'm so emotionally disturbed, right, that
Mm.
the thought comes in, ah, fuck it, this is not working. I might as well just have a drink to calm me nerves,
Yeah,
right?
that's the last thing we always used to say, isn't it? Fuck it.
Yeah, fuck it. Yeah. No, no, it's great this, mate, and we'll have more down the line if you want to. Now,
Yeah,
with regards to maintaining anonymity, I'm not sure about this. I'm not sure whether this is the correct thing to do, and we're talking. I don't know the answer to that. Some people on here might think, oh, these two shouldn't be talking about this. Some people might think they should. I'm not really bothered what others think, but I am bothered about doing the correct thing, and this feels correct to me.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's yeah. I've got no problem with it.
Right, mate. We'll have to meet up soon and have a coffee in the flesh.
Yeah, that'll do.
All right, and thanks very much, and thanks for listening to the shit I come out with a lot.
Thanks for listening to mine.
All right, mate. And thanks very much, everybody. I hope you get something from this. And on that note, Gary and Joe signing off. Bye
Thanks,
bye.
everyone.
Bye bye.
Bye.